Pokemon. Pocket monster. The spiral. And it stands for what? Male fertility. She's headstrong and stubborn, constantly arguing with Ash. Typical woman. Every time that you see Mewtwo, he's in this pose. 3 fingers.
In the late 90s and early 2000s, there was this craze sweeping across the globe, Pokemania. It was unavoidable. There were video games, trading cards, books, toys, a musical. Pikachu's cute little yellow face was slapped on basically anything and everything. And of course, a large part of Pokemania revolved around the wildly popular anime series that ran for 26 years and spawned over 20 films. But the height of Pokemania only lasted for a few years, seemingly fading away as quickly as it came in 2002. So what happened? What all caused the downfall of Pokemon? And when is the day Pokemon the animated series died?
But first, let me thank the sponsor of this video, Manscaped. A little peek behind the curtain into my own personal life. I recently had a vasectomy just a few weeks ago. And one of the things you have to do before showing up to the procedure is shave the surgical area. And trust me when I say that those few minutes with a sharp razor against my most sensitive of areas was the most heart-pounding, anxiety-inducing part of the entire procedure. Okay, it wasn't as stressful as the actual surgery itself, but if you're a guy, you know what I'm talking about. And during that stressful time of shaving, I really wish I had the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra from Manscaped. With its dual head system and skin-safe blades, it would have made my life so much easier. Manscaped has partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to help spread awareness about cancer prevention and to support individuals and families who have been affected by testicular cancer. And I'm really happy to get behind this cause. I lost my mother to uterine cancer just a few years ago, and so I know firsthand the effect that cancer can have on a family. Get 20% off your entire order and free shipping when you use my promo code THEELK at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with code THEELK at manscaped.com. And if you want to learn more about ways that you can check yourself, or if you want to donate to the Testicular Cancer Society, go to manscaped.com/TCS. Let's help raise awareness and help save lives together. Thanks again to Manscaped for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to the essay.
And I hereby declare to the Pokemon of the world, I will be a Pokemon Master!
Pokemon I Choose You premiered in the United States on September 8, 1998. And as far as pilot episodes go, especially with the added difficulty of adapting a video game for kids and then translating it for worldwide audiences, they really got a lot right. I love how the opening serves as this bridge between the video game, with its black and white graphics and turn-based combat, to the anime series full of vibrant colors and fast-paced fighting. It really felt like the perfect introduction, walking Pokemon into the future, bringing the Kanto region and our favorite characters to life. Like most pilot episodes with unique worlds and rules, the episode had a lot of heavy lifting to do when it came to the exposition. Professor Oak and an extra sassy Pokédex help feed us that information.
It also comes out into open fields to steal food from stupid travelers.
It's a shame they toned down the attitude of the Pokédex. That could have been a lot of fun. We learn when Pokemon trainers start their journey. It's 10. 10. I'll never get over that fact. We learn how trainers start with a Pokemon, how to catch Pokemon, and how each Pokemon has its own unique abilities. Okay, so that first episode is basically one large exposition dump, but it works well, and a lot of that has to do with the characters. Ash Ketchum is naive and cocky, but he has this youthful exuberance that you can't help but root for. He's also fiercely loyal to his friends and Pokemon, but I'll get to that in a second. We meet Ash's mom, Professor Oak, Ash's hometown rival, Gary, and Misty, who would become one of the most beloved characters on the series for her 5-season run. Rest in peace, Rachel Lillis. And of course, there's Pikachu, the face of the entire Pokemon franchise.
Pikachu.
In hindsight, it seems like the easiest slam dunk choice to make Pikachu the face of this entire gigantic franchise and to join Ash on his journey, but really it was dumb luck, brought about by a series of happy accidents. It could have easily been Bulbasaur, Squirtle, or Charmander, the 3 starter Pokemon from the video game that get a similar mention in the series. But executives were afraid that picking one of the 3 would create favoritism, elevating one over the others. There was this fear that kids watching at home would see that their Pokemon wasn't selected, cast aside, and that would make them angry. Pokemon Executive Director Kunihiko Yuyama explains the thought process behind selecting Pikachu over the other 3 starters. I think of Pikachu as a combination of cuteness, strength, and the ability to bring a few laughs. By the way, I decided from the very get-go that the Pokemon that would become Ash's partner would not be one of the 3 you choose between at the start of the video game, since I figured that might make some of the viewers sad. That's why he ended up with a Pikachu, a decision I'm really glad I made. And back in 1999, producer Takemoto Mori said this in an interview. When we decided to animate the project, we had a meeting. We pretty much had the story outline, but which Pokemon should we use? In the game, you have Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle, right? The main point is not to alienate any of the kids. For example, if we had the main character choose Squirtle, then some of the kids would say, "Hey, I chose Charmander," and that would lead to the kid saying, "Who needs this show?" In a bizarre alternate universe, Ash could have been paired with Rhydon. Seems ridiculous, but Rhydon was actually the first Pokemon that was ever designed, since it embodied the dinosaur look that the creators were originally going for early on in the creature design phase, with its horn, long tail, and bulky body. Even though Rhydon didn't become the face of Pokemon, it clearly had a lasting impact with the designers, since they subtly placed Rhydon statues inside Pokemon gyms in the video games as this subtle nod to their foundational importance. The most realistic alternative to Pikachu was probably Clefairy. In the very first Pokemon manga Pocket Monsters, released in 1996, the main character Red is first paired with a Clefairy. Though this isn't the sweet, cuddly, soft-spoken Clefairy that we're used to now, this Clefairy could talk and was obnoxious and crude. I looked at a few images of this manga online, and they're pretty damn crude and raunchy. I don't even really feel comfortable showing you those images here. So go ahead and do a quick little search online, and you can have those images burned in your brain just like they are in mine. You're welcome. I can understand the appeal to Clefairy. It's obviously cute, even resembling another Nintendo icon in Kirby with its round pink body. But that was also the problem. You want the face of your franchise to stand out, but Clefairy already resembled Kirby. It even looked like Jigglypuff. And there was concern internally that pink would appeal more to girls. Like Takemoto was talking about earlier, if your aim is to not alienate any of the kids, then I'm sure they were concerned that something as silly as the color pink might turn away young boys. On the flip side, the executives loved Pikachu because its unique yellow design with red cheeks and the lightning bolt tail helped it stand out, and they thought it could appeal to everyone. And when compared to a number of other Pokemon, Pikachu was one of the few that actually looked like a pet. It just made the most sense. And with that, a mascot was born. The relationship between Ash and Pikachu is the most important on the series. And the first episode made the right decision by putting that relationship front and center. Their dynamic immediately starts off as combative.
Oh, hi, Pikachu!
Pika.
Both Ash and Pikachu are introduced as underdogs, each overlooked in their own way.
It's a little weird.
Weird.
And it's fascinating to see their relationship quickly develop. Like I mentioned earlier, even though Ash is arrogant and naive, he's always loyal to his Pokemon. He treats them more like friends than pets, always trying to protect them at all costs, even if that means sacrificing his own well-being. And that sacrificial love is on full display in the first episode, as he tries to convince Pikachu to save itself from the flock of Spearow that are attacking them by hiding in the Pokeball.
I know you're afraid of going in there, but if you're inside, maybe I can save you.
Ash puts his own well-being on the line to save Pikachu, and Pikachu then returns that loyalty with a massive lightning bolt that saves both of them. and that's the beginning of what the narrator calls the adventures of Ash and Pikachu. The rest of the first season, also called Indigo League, is so full of so many classic episodes. It's in the very next episode, Pokemon Emergency, that we are introduced to important characters like Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy. But more importantly, it's where we first meet Jessie, again R.I.P. Rachel Lillis, James and Meowth from Team Rocket, who would become the overarching antagonists, always planning some harebrained scheme to steal Pikachu that would inevitably blow up in their faces and send them blasting off again. Episode 3, Ash Catches a Pokemon, highlights Ash catching his first 2 Pokemon, a Caterpie and Pidgeotto.
I love my new little Pokemon.
I guess it takes a worm to love a worm.
And is the first time we see a Pokemon evolve, with Caterpie quickly evolving into Metapod. Episode 4, Challenge of the Samurai, has Metapod evolving into Butterfree. Episode 5, Showdown in Pewter City, has our introduction to Brock, another beloved character who follows Ash on his journey across many seasons. This also has the first gym battle, and Ash winning his first badge. It's a season full of firsts and iconic Pokemon, the first trade and the first goodbye, other elements that the show brought over from the video game. I didn't realize how important Caterpie is to the foundation of the show. It only exists in the series for 21 episodes, but it's the very first Pokemon we see Ash catch, it's the first we see evolve, it's the first we see traded, even though Ash eventually trades for it back, and it's the first Pokemon that Ash says goodbye to, but I'll touch on that later. There's the 3-episode arc where Ash catches Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. There's the St. Anne arc. The entire Pokemon League tournament arc at the end of the season is fantastic. Indigo League also has several banned episodes, like Beauty and the Beach, where Misty competes in a beauty contest against a cross-dressing James with inflatable boobs. Tentacool and Tentacruel was banned for several years following the attacks of 9/11, since the episode has this giant Tentacruel destroying several buildings. The Legend of Dratini was never aired in the West, since the episode is full of people pointing guns at each other.
ルールを守らんときはわしのサンダーボルトが火を吹くぞ。
サンダーボルトって。
わかりました。
Holiday Hijinks aired, but was eventually removed from the West after concerns that Jinx's appearance resembled blackface. And then there's the episode Electric Soldier Porygon, that has this moment of red and blue strobe lights that sent hundreds of children to the hospital with seizures in Japan. Indigo League is iconic for so many reasons. Ash and Pikachu die in one of the episodes. Yeah, seriously. In the Tower of Terror, they're both crushed under a chandelier and turn into ghosts. Indigo League rules. And of course, there's the first movie, appropriately called Pokemon the First Movie, that takes place directly in the middle of the season. They spend a few episodes leading up to the movie, introducing Mewtwo in the Battle of the Badge as this never-before-seen ultra-powerful Pokemon. We see a glimpse of Mewtwo again in the next episode, it's Mr. Mime time. And a few episodes later, we see Mewtwo demolish Team Rocket's headquarters and free itself from its shackles in Showdown at the Poke Corral. And all of this led to Pokemon the First Movie. Now, is this movie great? Definitely not. But it's practically Citizen Kane compared to the movies that would come after it. The first movie suffers from the same issues of the series, uninspiring animation and very little story. The episodes get away with it because they're only 21 minutes long, but these movies always feel like overlong episodes that can't carry the weight of a feature-length story. I think Roger Ebert said it best in his review of the film.
It's about acquiring Pokemons.
Okay, well maybe not that, but this.
They fight for an hour and then they have a message at the end about how fighting is bad, but then they're going to have a sequel where they fight some more.
He's right in the sense that there's no real lesson learned. Sure, we get Ash sacrificing himself to prove the point that the bond between Pokemon and trainers is based on friendship and love, as opposed to control and obedience. But in the end, Mewtwo wipes all of their memories. It's a convenient way to go back to the series without explaining anything in the movie, but it kind of makes all the events of the first movie meaningless. The second season is referred to as the Orange Islands arc, and it might be the weirdest arc of the entire series. Unlike the Kanto region that came before it, and the Johto region that would come after it, Orange Islands is almost completely filler. I talked about filler episodes in a previous video of mine, so I won't get too bogged down in it right here, but filler episodes have basically become synonymous with anime, because a lot of anime shows are based on mangas or some other source material, and so when there's a gap or a delay in the source material, the series has to find a way to stall for time while also filling the episode order. Hence, filler episode. The Indigo League has plenty of filler episodes. About a quarter of the episodes are filler, including some of my favorites, like The Ghost of Maiden's Peak.
I've been waiting for you.
Yes, and I've been waiting too.
I'm scared, really scared.
And Showdown at Dark City, which is basically just Kurosawa's classic film Yojimbo, but with Pokemon. I mean, how can you not love that? But filler episodes carry this negative connotation of being a waste of time. Something skippable that doesn't really affect the larger series. The Indigo League was based on the first generation of games, Red and Blue. And Johto was going to be based on the next generation of games, Gold and Silver. But those games weren't completed yet. And so the Orange Islands was meant to serve as this filler until those games were released. The Orange Islands does exist in the manga, but it's significantly shorter with so many changes that the anime arc is practically its own thing. Because of that, a lot of people consider the entire 36 episode season skippable, but I think that's a huge mistake. I really enjoyed the Orange Islands. Hell, it might even be my favorite arc in the series. Here's why. First of all, I'm an original 151 purist. Those are my favorite Pokemon, and they always will be because of the nostalgia that I have that's tied to them. And so getting to highlight and spend time with those 151 Pokemon in another arc was perfectly fine by me. And since Orange Islands wasn't beholden to any source material, I felt like it was able to have a bit more creative freedom. Every island they traveled to was like its own world of endless possibilities. An island with a crystal onyx, an island where all the Pokemon are pink, an island made up of fossilized Kabuto that reawaken and destroy the island, an island where Meowth becomes a god. Even the gym battles were different. As opposed to the normal fights, these battles were more competitions of skill to test the relationships between the trainers and their Pokemon. It broke the mold in a way that felt fresh. This season really worked for me because it slowed down and fleshed out the world. For instance, in the episode The Joy of Pokemon, we get to see a different kind of Nurse Joy who, instead of operating out of a Pokemon Center, travels to islands too small for a Pokemon Center in order to treat sick Pokemon. It's a small detail, but really makes the world feel alive with its own rules of operation. And in the end of the arc, spoiler alert for something that happened 25 years ago, Ash actually wins the Orange Islands League. A huge dose of motivation for Ash and his team after losing in Indigo League. Now, it's only fair to mention the aspects of Orange Islands that didn't work, too. Sure, they highlighted a lot of the same Pokemon that they already did in Indigo League, but like I mentioned earlier, that didn't bother me at all. Those are the Pokemon I personally like best, and they highlighted a lot of those Pokemon in different ways, showing off different parts of their nature. I think my biggest complaints about the Orange Islands boils down to two things. The entire premise that leads Ash and crew to the Orange Islands is a mission by Professor Oak.
I need you to run a very important errand for me on Valencia Island in the Orange Archipelago. I'd like you to go and visit my friend Professor Ivy and bring back the mysterious Pokeball that he recently acquired so that I can study it.
They're told that the GS ball can't be opened or teleported, and so they'll have to hand deliver it back to Professor Oak. But Professor Oak tells them to enjoy exploring the Orange Islands on their way back to him. The GS ball makes occasional appearances throughout the season.
Psyduck, that GS ball isn't a toy! Now get back in your Pokeball before I start bouncing you around!
And then at the very end of the season, Ash and crew return to Pallet Town, give the ball to Professor Oak, but he can't uncover its secrets either. 36 episodes of build-up to nothing but a dead end. I'll talk more about Johto in a second, but I need to keep talking about the GS Ball and bring it to the end of its saga just so you can see my frustration. Professor Oak tells Ash to journey into the Johto region and give the GS Ball to a Pokeball maker named Kurt. So not only does the GS Ball launch us into the Orange Islands, but it also launches us into Johto. Another 27 episodes into Johto, and they finally find Kurt in the episode Going Apricorn. They give him the GS Ball, and it's another dead end. He says that he'll continue running tests and will keep them posted on what he finds. He doesn't. In fact, the GS Ball is never mentioned again in the entire Pokemon series. 63 episodes of this damn GS Ball. It launched us into the Orange Islands, and then launches us into Johto, and poof, forgotten forever. So what happened? The GS Ball was always meant to launch the characters into Johto, as that arc corresponds with the Gold-Silver games. Gold, Silver, GS. Even the Pokeball is gold and silver.
Why is it all gold and silver?
The most insight we can get is from this interview back in 2008, when director storyboard artist Matsumitsu Hidaka talked with this Pokemon fan page, PokeBeach. He shook his head and started to laugh, embarrassed, and began to explain it contained a gold and silver monster. He explained that the writers were originally going to have a whole story about Celebi in the show with Ash and crew, and he made it sound as if the story was more important than the ball's function of getting Ash to move around. But they decided to save Celebi for the movie instead, which is why that plot hole was just left there. He said the writers didn't know what to do with the ball after they made their decision, so they were hoping fans would just forget about it altogether when Ash and crew left it with Kurt. So there you go. Case closed, I guess. It's in the third episode of the season, Pokeball Peril, that Ash receives the GS Ball. But it's also the episode where Brock is temporarily booted off the show, choosing to stay behind with Professor Ivy to learn more from her.
If I stay here, I'll get to learn more and more about Pokemon every day.
And in the very next episode, The Lost Lapras, we're introduced to Tracy Sketchit, a Pokemon watcher who loves sketching and studying Pokemon. The thing about Tracy is he's kind of a big, dull dud. I don't think he's ever abrasive or annoying. He just doesn't really add anything to the show. In comparison to Brock was more comedic and offered an important mentoring role for Ash, serving as this big brother type who could provide exposition on the world, explaining things and commenting on fights, even reffing matches occasionally. Plus, Brock was more popular since he'd basically been there since the very beginning of the series. Tracy is there throughout the Orange Islands, but once they return to Pallet Town at the end of the season, everything switches back. Tracy decides to stay with his idol, Professor Oak.
I was just feeding your muck.
He's really real!
And Brock is already there waiting for them. But any mention of Professor Ivy and why he left results in Brock curling into this ball of sadness on the floor.
How come you didn't stay with Professor Ivy?
Hey, Brock, what's wrong?
I don't want to talk about it.
Just like the GS Ball, it's another mystery that is never answered on the show. That same interview with Matsumitsu offers a little bit of insight into what happened. I asked him why they dropped Brock like a rock in the Orange Islands, and if they ever intended on his absence being temporary. He started to explain that they like to switch up the cast once in a while, and that was their first time doing it. He started to talk for quite some time to the translator. The translator began to explain that the Japanese crew felt that Brock might be viewed as racist by the American people because of his eyes, and that they were even fearful of it when Pokemon first came to America. I asked if anyone ever complained, and he said no. But it was just that they were worried someone might eventually. So they brought in a tall, white, Anglo-looking character to replace him, just to be on the safe side. We realized no one really cared about it and liked Brock, so we brought him back. With Ash, Misty, and Brock reunited, they all ventured into the Johto region, a new place with new characters and new Pokemon. But with the constant bombardment of new Pokemon introduced week after week, There suddenly wasn't enough room for those original first-gen Pokemon that had been around since the beginning. And it's understandable, because the brand obviously wants to highlight these new Pokemon that correspond with the new games. This is the state of constant evolution that Pokemon finds itself in. Hellos and goodbyes. That's what the entire show is. Hellos and goodbyes. By the end of the Johto arc, the team is unrecognizable, and basically all storylines and character arcs have been resolved. Squirtle leaves early on in the firing squad, Ash's main rival Gary undergoes a major character change, deciding he wants to be a Pokemon researcher like his grandfather, and buries the hatchet with Ash in the episode Johto Photo Finish. The Season 5 penultimate episode, Gotta Catch You Later, has a tearful parting as Misty, Brock, and Ash decide to go their own separate ways, even though Brock returns in just a few episodes. And in the final episode of the Johto arc, Hoenn Alone, Ash decides to dump all of his Pokemon with Professor Oak, except Pikachu, of course, as he ventures off alone into the Hoenn region. Yet again, another new place with new characters and new Pokemon. Like I said, constant evolution, hellos and goodbyes. We have new video games and merchandise to sell here, people. In the beginning of this video, I talked about how it was important for the creators to keep a lot of these functions and mechanics, important aspects of the video games, and translate those into the series. One of the most important is that a trainer can only carry 6 Pokemon at a time. It forces turnover, out with the old, in with the new. That's a key aspect of the game and the series. It's not good or bad, it's just what the show is. And once you know that, you can either enthusiastically sign up for more, or you can grow numb to the constant repetition and turnover. Unfortunately, that's what happened to me. And it all started on February 3rd, 2001, with the episode Charizard's Burning Ambitions, the day Pokemon died. I want to take a moment to talk about Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard, who I think is far and away the best character on the series. We first meet Charmander in just the 11th episode of the series, Charmander, the Stray Pokemon. Another touching episode that shows the links that Ash will go to in order to help and care for Pokemon. Charmander continues to make occasional appearances, and then about 30 episodes later, in the episode The March of the Executor Squad, Charmander unexpectedly evolves into Charmeleon.
It's evolving!
And immediately, its personality shifts. What was once a lovable, obedient Pokemon, eager to please, evolves into a disobedient Charmeleon that is out of control and even attacks Ash. And just 3 episodes later, in Attack of the Prehistoric Pokemon, Charmeleon evolves yet again into an even more powerful, arrogant, and disobedient Charizard. This rapid evolution, paired with disobedience, perfectly reflects an aspect of the video game, where trainers need to have more gym badges and experience in order for these higher level Pokemon to respect and obey them. But the road to obedience is a long one. Ash calls upon Charizard time and time again, but Charizard is this loose cannon, dangerous and unpredictable. You can never be sure whether it's going to come through and win the match, purely out of pride or spite, like against Blaine's Magmar, or just lay down and nap, like it did in the Indigo League match that resulted in Ash's elimination, a low point in their relationship. In the beginning of the Orange Islands, Ash is still determined to win Charizard's trust.
I know someday I'll get Charizard to listen to me too, Misty. You just wait and see.
That's the spirit.
And then finally, a little more than midway through the Orange Islands arc, Charizard has his largest, most profound character shift in the episode Charizard Chills. Very reminiscent of the first time him and Charmander met, even reminiscent of the very first episode with Pikachu. Ash is able to win over his Pokemon with relentless loyalty and compassion. Finally, Charizard is able to respect and obey Ash as a trainer and as a friend. And it's because of their relationship growth that they're able to win gym battles and eventually win the Orange Islands League. But now there was a problem going into the Johto region. Charizard was always really powerful, but it was his recklessness and arrogance that really brought him down. It helped keep him in check. With Ash and Charizard working together in full force as a team finally, Charizard suddenly became too powerful for the show, especially around these brand new low-level Pokemon that were just beginning their journeys.
When the going gets tough, the tough get Charizard.
But you use Charizard all the time, Ash. And I, for one, think that's really unfair.
Most Pokemon don't stand a chance against a Charizard, so using it is sort of unfair.
In the second episode of the Johto arc, the Double Trouble header, Ash is able to wipe out a new trainer's entire squad of Pokemon with just Charizard. And Charizard also helps seal the victory for Ash's first Johto Gym badge. Charizard just didn't fit with these new Pokemon, like Chikorita, Cyndaquil, and Totodile, that were all beginning their own journeys and personal character arcs. They were never going to get their own proper spotlight in the shadow of Charizard. And so in the episode, Charizard's Burning Ambitions, Charizard was basically written off the show, left behind to train and hone its skills with other Charizards. Was it necessary? Probably. But did it still bum me the hell out? Yes, absolutely. Charizard would continue to make occasional appearances whenever Ash needed to pull out the big guns against the biggest and baddest opponents, like in the third movie, when fighting the gym leader Claire, and in the Johto League battles. Charizard basically became this break in case of emergency Pokemon. And as great as those reunions were, they were always bittersweet, because you knew just as quickly as he came, he was soon going to be flying off again. Every time we have to say goodbye to one of our characters, it really sucks. But again, that's the entire format of the show. Hellos and goodbyes. Out with the old, in with the new. I knew it was going to keep happening, but I also knew that no new Pokemon was going to come along and suddenly have as large of an impact as Charizard did from this emotional standpoint. Maybe even more than Pikachu. Sure, Pikachu and Ash have gone through so much more together, but they were basically best buds from episode 2. The relationship between Ash and Charizard was so fun to watch because we wanted to watch that relationship evolve, following along with their often volatile relationship as they grew as fighter and trainer together. Overcoming their struggles just made every victory that much more satisfying. Charizard's Burning Ambitions is so early on in the series, just season 3 out of what would become a mind-blowing 26 seasons of Ash's journey towards becoming a Pokemon Master. There were a lot of good episodes and bad episodes along the way, but after Charizard was written off the show, I just found myself emotionally checking out, already growing numb to the constant shuffle, the hellos and goodbyes, which is why I think that's the day Pokemon died. Really torn because I feel like the best part about Pokemon is also its worst part, the constant hellos and goodbyes. But in those is probably also its most important lesson. I've been watching Pokemon with my kids, having a blast, but also kind of wondering, what are these kids learning from this show? And then I realized when we bought these little caterpillars that turned into butterflies, we watched them grow and change, and then had to let them go ourselves. And I got to watch my children's faces as they were conflicted, because it was a good thing and it was a bad thing at the same time. It was sad to say goodbye to these people who were in our house for just a number of days, but for a child, there was a relationship there. I could see the life lesson. When my kid was sad about saying goodbye to that butterfly as it flew away, choking back tears, I couldn't help but think of Ash and Butterfree and them saying goodbye to each other. And I was able to point to that as a reminder to my daughter about the importance of saying goodbye, even though it hurts. And so I'm thankful for Pokemon for that lesson. Even though also I think that eventually it killed the show for me. But that's just my opinion. I would love to know when you think Pokemon died. If you think it ever did, please leave me a comment below. I would love to know. Anyways, make sure you're subscribed. If you're not, make sure you click that stupid bell so that way you're notified whenever a new Entertain the Elk video comes out. And I will see you all in the next video.